Madam Chair. I am delighted to once again participate in a debate on the freedom of religion and belief, and specifically the persecution of Christians and the importance of people being allowed to worship their God however they perceive him to be. And I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for Strangford for bringing this debate forward. I know that he very much cares about this issue and often raises it in the Chamber. And as others have said, it's very important that this issue continues to be on the radar, not just of this House, but of the international community. It is a fundamental, basic freedom to worship your God, however you perceive him, or indeed her, to be. The freedom to choose who you worship, how you worship, is a fundamental human right. And the nations which persecute those for their Christianity or the following of any religion to which the leaders of a particular nation are hostile, the nations which turn a blind eye to the persecution of a number of its citizens based on the faith they follow, are nations, we have to remember, which also tend to impose or sanction other human rights breaches as well. Persecution on the basis of faith does not happen in isolation, but it is insidious, it is cruel, it is repressive, and it is unacceptable. It often goes hand in hand with the repression and the subjugation of women. Forcing people to adhere to a particular set of religious belief is often little more than a means of control, which is why those who choose to subscribe to a minority religion in repressive states are considered by those leaders to be dangerous and subject to persecution. If not carried out by the state directly, then the state sanctions it. And you often find that the means of control, forcing people, even if it's only outwardly, to subscribe to a particular religion, taking the form of making an offence to insult the dominant religion, as happens in Nigeria, as we've heard, making blasphemy a crime punishable by death. The days of preaching to convert people the old-fashioned way is clearly not used in such states. Indeed, blasphemy laws, as the Honourable Member for Strangford has told us, are too often manipulated to settle petty scores. Alternatively, people are forced to subscribe and defer to a particular religion or die as a result of some perceived act of blasphemy. That seems to be the choice that many are faced with in such regimes. In this day and age, from the comfort of the West, we can scarcely imagine just how horrific living in such a place must be if you're a Christian, the most persecuted religion in the world. And the US Commission on International Religious Freedom reported 732 blasphemy-related incidents across 41 countries in the short time between 2014 and 2018. 4 of the 41 countries accounted for nearly 80% of all reported incidents of mob activity: Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria, and Egypt. Any international engagement by the West with such states must take place under the shadow of violence and oppression that they perpetrate. And it is on that basis that any engagement must make clear, free nations must make clear they will not tolerate religious oppression of any kind and use every diplomatic and other lever at our disposal to challenge and counter this wherever it exists. I note the comments made by others that Nigeria tops the list of the most violent persecution of Christians, and all free and democratic members of the international community must have that information in the forefront of their minds in any dealings with Nigeria or any such state, and take concentrated and concerted action to challenge and tackle this, because hand-wringing and finger-wagging is not working. Nations from Myanmar to Nigeria, Kashmir to Ethiopia, Afghanistan to Somalia, from India to Pakistan, Saudi Arabia to Iran, at least 360 million Christians have experienced high levels of persecution and discrimination this year alone. 20 million more than in 2021. So persecution of Christians is growing. It is not decreasing. Every day, around 13 Christians are killed because of their faith. Every day, 12 churches or Christian buildings are attacked. Every day, 12 Christians are unjustly arrested or imprisoned, and another 5 are abducted. The problem is getting worse. And I wish to pay particular tribute to the hugely important work of the charity Open Doors, which works tirelessly to support persecuted Christians around the world, as well as shining a much-needed light on this persecution for the international stage, so that this horror is not forgotten by members of the international community which values freedom. But Open Doors reminds us that the World Watch List, the annual accounting of countries guilty of the most persecution of Christians, is not really a list compiling oppression, but perhaps upliftingly. It is a list of resilience, of those who hold true to their faith in the face of the greatest and gravest of danger. Freedom of religion or belief is codified in international law, and 41 years ago, in 1981, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution proclaiming the Declaration on the Elimination of all forms of intolerance and discrimination based on religion or belief. But despite that declaration, much more needs to be done by the whole international community, and of course I include the UK government in that, to support freedom of religion or belief around the world. There must be no more important missed opportunities, because sadly, it seems that the 2022 International Ministerial Conference on Freedom of Religion or Belief, which took place in July in London, has a legacy of diplomatic fallouts, but not much more than that we've been pushing for today. I will indeed.
Project of producing or creating education materials for primary schools, which was one of the issues talked about at the ministerial. That is actually one of about 7 streams of work that the Alliance is taking forward after the ministerial, when we analysed ideas and suggestions there. Obviously, it will take us some time to bring forward the fruit of that work, but I do hope in 2023 that will become apparent.
I thank you, the Honourable Lady, for pointing that out. The push for greater recognition of the freedom of religion or belief will never be solved by one conference. I think we all recognise that. The problem is too ingrained, it's too great, sadly. But it could have been perhaps a more significant step on this important path. But I take the point the Honourable Lady is making about small steps are steps nonetheless. To make sustained and meaningful progress on this important issue, we need the international community in the West, where we believe in freedom, to engage in an ongoing and evolving mission. We need to be braver about challenging those repressive nations who persecute their own people for worshipping their own God. We need to be willing to confront this on the international stage at every opportunity. For any state, for any government, for any person to attempt to interfere with or persecute someone on the basis of what God a person chooses to worship is unacceptable. Every nation which believes in freedom should say so and should be unafraid to do so and stand up for those who are oppressed. That is their moral obligation and their moral duty. If we don't stand up for freedom, what else will we stand up for?